This is Breezy, my indie game that's like golf except you control the wind. And by the way, I'm a little sick, so this devlog might sound a bit crunchy. As you hopefully know, I've finished the title screen and main menus for the game, so I've got all the systems in place to start creating more content like levels and characters. Except, I also need to make sure the player can unlock that content through collectibles. Let me tell you about collectibles, how I created one for my game, and how you can make a collectible that players actually want to collect. The Golden Tee is Breezy's side collectible, the main objective obviously being the flag at the end of the level. As you might expect, the new characters, worlds, and music tracks are locked behind these golden tees. However, they're not a currency and they're not scattered around as a minor objective like Mario's coins. Instead, they're present in certain levels and areas that are challenging to reach or that can only be reached by playing as certain characters. For example, reaching behind this wall can't be done with the default ball, but the beach ball and roll ball can both make it there. Another example is this tee placed high up in one of the beach levels. Reaching it will definitely throw you out of the level, but if you can make it, you'll get a major reward. Now though, let's get to the important part. How did I make this? And even more importantly, how did I make it look appealing? The first part of making a collectible appealing is to, well, tell the player that it's appealing. But I don't mean just putting a pop-up on the screen saying, collect this. Although that is an option, I'm talking about making a collectible fit in with your game's design language. For those not familiar, a design language is a set of unspoken rules that your game uses to tell your player information about the game world. I like to describe these rules as X means Y. For example, the original Super Mario Bros. Has square means walkable and moving means important. So how does the Golden Tee fit into Breezy's design language? Well, it follows a few rules about objects in the game. Yellow means important and shiny means desirable. When you're looking at the screen during a typical game of Breezy, the first thing you notice is probably the bright yellow arrow, which you can follow back to the ball. Since the ball is small and white, the large yellow arrow gives it more presence on the screen to match its relative importance. The next thing you notice is probably the flag. It's bright yellow with a shiny metal sphere on the top of the pole. These two things are very noticeable, so I made the tee a bright glowing yellow and added some sparkly particle effects. I'm also following the more subtle rule of more motion means more important by making the tee spin around, which is more noticeable than the subtle swaying of the bushes or palm trees. But a collectible's presence in the level is only half of the story. We also need to talk about, well, actually collecting it. The second part of making a collectible appealing is deciding what happens when you actually collect it. I'm not just talking about what happens progression-wise. I'm talking about how the game celebrates you getting the collectible. Allow me to break down what happens in Breezy. This is where it's important to build up that anticipation while also letting the player know that something important happened. In Breezy's case, time stops while the tee starts spinning faster and faster until it rises into the air. A little sparkly noise also plays to emphasize that this is something of value. Next, the big fanfare. The camera zooms in to get a money shot of the tee, and this bold, brassy jingle plays. This circle fade comes in along with some text that proclaims to the world that you got a golden tee. And yes, the two exclamation marks are very necessary. Notice how all these effects isolate the tee and block out everything else on the screen. You can barely even see the ball itself. Finally, we wind the fanfare down to get back to regular gameplay. The music switches to this calm theme. At this point, I would display a preview of what you unlocked, but I don't really have anything to unlock. Anyway, now the game boots you back to the title screen. This sounds like a bit of an uh-oh moment, since people always give the Mario games flack for booting you out of the level after collecting a star. Well, it's different in Breezy since the title screen is only a single A press away from gameplay. This also makes it easier to see what new things you've unlocked since the level select menu and the character menu are both on the title screen. Oh, and speaking of the new things you've unlocked, the final part of making an appealing collectible is what it actually does. If you've ever played a game like Mario, you'll know that you don't have access to every level at once. If you did, you might decide to try a super hard one right at the start, and the pacing of the game would go out of whack. Games need some sort of progression system to control difficulty. They also need progression systems to create incentives to keep playing. This is why RPGs have so much grinding. If you didn't have to level up, the game will be extremely short, since you could just walk to the end. Some games are more intense about this than others. There are games where you have to grind and hunt down a bunch of collectibles before you can progress to the next part of the game. There are also more lenient games that let you skip some of the collectibles. Breezy is firmly in the second camp. For each of the main worlds, you only have to beat one level to unlock the next. That means that you could theoretically play the first level of each world and beat the whole game, but I don't mind that. I'm using the strategy to modulate difficulties so that inexperienced players can find at least one way to move on to harder worlds. But remember that I said this was for the main worlds. There's also going to be some side content in Breezy, new worlds, alternate music tracks, and unlockable characters. The side content is what's going to incentivize players to keep going with the game. It's also going to incentivize them to master the game's movement and level mechanics. Finally, it's going to encourage them to try out different characters and learn the unique quirks. Placing collectibles in this way will help your players to be rewarded, and that's the main goal of a game like Breezy. See you soon.